Today we shall see the domains of learning in Bloom's taxonomy. Every work should start with certain goals, because these goals give direction to the work and to assess the value of the work. In the same way, teaching should also aim by keeping certain goals in the form of behavioral changes in the students. In education system, these goals are known as objectives. The idea of classifying objectives came into the mind of Bloom and his followers in the year 1948 in a psychological association at Boston. After that, in 1956, this Bloom's taxonomy was completed, and Bloom has classified the behavioral changes of the students in 3 domains. The first domain is cognitive domain, which is related to head activities of the students. The second domain is affective domain, which is related to heart activities, and the third domain is psychomotor domain, which is related to hand activities. Learning behavior is divided into these 3 domains, and this classification is also known as KSA: knowledge, cognitive, skill, psychomotor, attitude, affective. In the first domain, Bloom has arranged the objectives or the learning levels in this way. At the lowest level, knowledge is kept, and the next one is comprehension, and the next level is application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. So, what is meant by knowledge? It can be defined as ability to remember things. Recalling and recognition are the 2 specific behaviors which indicate the achievement of knowledge. The second one, comprehension. It is defined as ability to grasp the inner meaning of the material. Bloom has suggested 3 specific behaviors for this objective. They are translating, interpreting, and extrapolating. Translate means the student should be able to translate things from one form to another. And interpretation, student should be able to interpret the charts, graphs, etc. And extrapolation means student should be able to draw the conclusions. And the next one, application. The knowledge is useful when it is possible to apply it in other situations. So, application is defined as ability to use the knowledge in new situation. And the next one, analysis. It refers to the breakdown of material into its component parts so that its organizational structure can be understood. And the next, synthesis, ability to put parts together to form a new whole. This may involve the production of a unique communication, a plan of operation, etc. Evaluation. It is the ability to judge the adequacy of the data. It represents the highest level in the objectives belonging to the cognitive domain. Later, in the affective domain, in the Bloom's original taxonomy, affective domain objectives deal with interests, attitudes, values, appreciation, and adjustment. But the levels are not suggested in the original Bloom's taxonomy. Later, in 1964, Krathwohl has suggested certain levels to achieve each objective under affective domain. They are receiving. It means receiving to orient the learner to learn. The responding. It comes after the student develops attention. The next one is valuing. In this, student recognize the values in the activity and he follows that values. And the next one, organization. At this stage, student not only understands the values, he will try to organize certain activities which involves values. And the last level, characterization. This is the highest level of the affective domain and includes characterization of a person's behavior by certain value system. So, if all these levels are achieved, then only the objectives under affective domain will be achieved. And the next level domain is psychomotor domain. In the Bloom's taxonomy, only this domain name is suggested, but the later work is done by various educationists. All the skills are included in this psychomotor domain, like drawing skill, observation skill, experimentation skill, construction skill, etc. The skill achieved through the activities can be categorized into the following levels: imitation, manipulation, precision, articulation, and naturalization. This way of categorizing the levels of achieving the objective of psychomotor domain is suggested by Dave. So, the first level is imitation. At this stage, student tries to imitate the work of the teacher, and the second one is manipulation. Here it involves following directions, selecting certain action in performing the motor activity. And the third stage, at this stage student shows certain accuracy and perfection in doing the activity. And articulation, here the student shows coordination between the ideas and motor activities. And naturalization, this is the final level which shows the achievement of a skill under psychomotor domain, and the skill acquired in one activity will be applied in other situations also. So, the Bloom's taxonomy can be shown like this: under cognitive domain, knowledge, comprehension, application analysis, synthesis and evaluation; and affective domain, the levels of achieving each objective are shown in this way: receiving, responding, valuing, organization, and characterization by a value or value complex. And in psychomotor domain, the levels of achieving objectives of psychomotor domain are imitation, manipulation, precision, articulation, and naturalization. So, mainly the Bloom's taxonomy is concerned with the objectives of cognitive domain, and the affective domain deals with the details of the second domain published by Krathwohl, and the psychomotor domain was recognized, and the later the levels of the domain were given by Dave and others also. The Bloom's taxonomy was revised in 2001 by Lorin, Anderson and Krathwohl. The main modifications suggested in revised Bloom's taxonomy are: instead of using nouns, verbs are used to show the or to give the names of the levels of cognitive processes, and the names of certain objectives are changed. And the major modification done in revised Bloom's taxonomy is the cognitive process is showing in two dimensions. One is the knowledge dimension, and second one is cognitive process dimension. So, here in the revised Bloom's taxonomy, knowledge is divided into four types: factual knowledge, conceptual knowledge, procedural knowledge, and metacognitive knowledge. Factual knowledge means in every subject, in every discipline, there are certain elements which are fundamentally known, and the knowledge about these fundamental elements is known as factual knowledge. And conceptual knowledge, knowledge of classification and categories, and knowledge of principles and generalizations, and knowledge of theories and models come to this type of knowledge. And procedural knowledge, knowledge of subject specific skills and algorithms are the methods and procedures and techniques of a subject comes under this procedural knowledge. And metacognitive knowledge, knowledge of one's own cognition comes under this type. So, here we can see the modifications done in revised Bloom's taxonomy. The action verbs are used to the cognitive processes. So, the knowledge objective in Bloom's taxonomy is changed into remembering, and comprehension is changed into understanding, application is applying, and analysis is changed into analyzing. And here we can see the change in the position of evaluating objective and synthesis objective. Here the names of two objectives, that is the comprehension and synthesis objectives. These two terms are changed into understanding and creating, and the position of the objectives are also changed. Here in this diagram we can see that the highest level in cognitive process is shown as creating, and the evaluation ability to evaluate things position is changed. Here you can see clearly in the original Bloom's taxonomy the synthesis is in the 5th position, whereas in the revised Bloom's taxonomy it is kept in the highest level, because to produce new things, to create a new formula, to derive a new formula is it is required, and the mental abilities are more required for creating new things. That is why it is kept in the highest level in revised Bloom's taxonomy. And the advantage of revised Bloom's taxonomy can be observed in this matrix table. In the revised Bloom's taxonomy, there is a possibility of showing objectives very clearly in this matrix table. The horizontal rows represent the types of knowledge, and the vertical columns show the levels of cognitive processing. For example, in this table, the first one, listing. The behavioral change of listing comes under the first level of cognitive process, that is remembering level, and it is related to factual knowledge. In this way, the behavioral changes of the students can be categorized more specifically than in the old Bloom's taxonomy. It is advantageous for the teachers to prepare the curricular materials and to select the goals and to evaluate the value of the teaching learning process.